So, I know everyone in this room is probably expecting like a pretty well-spoken and eloquent speech about something influential from me, but I hope that's what you're going to hear. But I don't want this to just be a speech that you hear and then forget about, go amongst your days. I hope that you walk out of this room feeling compelled to just walk in true humility and just how you can apply that to your life. So yeah, for my senior capstone experience, I pursued the virtue of humility and the career path of worship ministry. When Mr. Spector assigned this project at the beginning of the year and asked us to think of a virtue that we could improve on, I really started to think and pray and ask God just like what do I need to do better at? And so I just started to realize that I was really consumed by my pride. I was a very prideful person, and so I knew the opposite of pride is humility, so I chose to pursue that. And so humility is one of the biggest virtues in a leader, and I was just trying to come up with an experience that would teach me to live in humility for Christ. And so I thought of Jesus, and he places himself in the shoes of the oppressed, the poor, and the powerless. And so I thought of that, and I knew that that's what I was going to do. And so for the second semester, I pursued worship ministry. And so music has always been pretty important to me. It's always been a part of my life. And I just have always loved the thought of worshiping God with it. So I participated in a lot of worship bands throughout my life and just kind of got a feel for that. I just have built a deep infatuation for worship and so I wanted to find a way to implement humility within worship and just kind of gain a deeper understanding on the importance of that. And so first, I just want to tell you a little about my first semester, and I'll start with that. The plan for my experience was to go into Denver and to just reach out to the homeless in any way I could. And so I've done things in my life like that before, and I've known that how impactful and inspiring it is to me. And so about a month after the project was assigned, I went into Denver with a group from my church, and we just brought a bunch of sandwiches and hand warmers and Bibles to hand out. And so we focused on the streets that were known for having the most homeless people. And so a lot of you have probably heard of the 5 Points District in Denver. They have a lot of good food there, a lot of fun stuff, but at the same time, it's known for having the most homeless people and crime, and just not the best part of town. And basically, it's the northeast side of Denver, and it's 5 of the oldest blocks in Denver combined. And we just walked these streets on a Saturday night, and we just were walking down one of these streets. It was pretty late, and we just see all these sleeping bags lined up on the sidewalks with people just trying to get through another night of cold with all of their stuff just piled up next to them. And I remember walking down this street, and I was just thinking to God, how can someone's life come to this? How can it be like this? And so it really changed how I thought of homeless people once I actually witnessed their circumstances, where they sleep and just stuff like that. It just really changed. And once I had deep conversations with them about life and the struggles of it and the creator of the universe, it kind of just really humbled me. And we just spent that night giving out supplies and conversing with the homeless and just getting a feel for what their lives are like. So as we were walking down one of the streets, we were headed back to our cars, and I see this man huddled up in a corner, and I couldn't see his face. It was pretty dark, but I was walking, and I just felt God, Scott, he was telling me, Scott, you need to go talk to this dude. I'm just there's no way I'm going to do that. No way. And so I just kept making excuses in my head. I kept walking. I'm like, I'm not going to have the right words to say. Like, what if this guy's asleep? I kept walking, and it's like Jesus just slapped me in the face. And I turned around and went up to this guy, and I got a good look at his face, and he was like this old guy with a long gray beard and had a pipe in his mouth. And he was like very approachable once I got to see his face. I kneeled down next to him and started talking with him, and he seemed pretty stoked to talk to a teenage kid on a Saturday night. Like, no lie, he was pretty happy. So I just asked him about his life, and he was telling me what it was like before he became homeless, and his name was Steven, and he started telling me about his daughters and how much he misses them, and just how he can't be in their lives. And we started talking about faith and how it was hard for him to have any, given his circumstances, which I totally understood. It was just amazing to talk with Steven about struggles of life and just God. We just talked about religion and church and his faith, and it was just really cool and humbling. At the end of the conversation, I prayed with him, and I gave him a Bible, and I made him promise me that he would crack it open every once in a while. But, I mean, as you may have known, the title of this project is Confidence Properly Placed, or that's my title. And as I ran after a true meaning of humility and experienced it, I decided that having your confidence properly placed is what brings true humility. I think so many people in this world, including me, have their confidence placed in the wrong position in the wrong places, and people place confidence in their friends, someone they look up to, or something materialistic or something like that, and it's always going to lead to failure. Like, our confidence should be in the Lord. And so it is wrong to see humility as self-abasement, which means to think less of yourself for the sake of being humble or for the sake of something else. And C.S. Lewis had a quote about this, and he said, "True humility is not thinking less of yourself, it is thinking about yourself less." I want to encourage you guys today to not belittle yourselves for the sake of being humble. If you think less of yourself, you're still in a type of way thinking about yourself, just in a downgrading way, which is still a type of pride. And so I think that's the way that society defines it. But someone can have an outward representation of humility, but still have a heart filled with arrogance and pride. And I want you guys, and as well as myself, to avoid having a heart filled with arrogance and pride, but still have an appearance of humility. It's not just an outward demeanor. And so Proverbs 4:23, Mr. Spector was talking about this. I was pretty happy that he mentioned that verse this morning. But it reads, "Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it." When we kneel before God as sinners, we need to realize that we have nothing to offer him besides our sin and the need for deliverance. And you need to realize that pride hinders our intimacy with God, but humility ignites it. And so I think it could be said that pride is the biggest grasp that the devil has on this world, and I think that it's his most effective and destructive tool, I think, in a lot of ways. But that night in Denver was really just a replenishing experience for me, and that's my first semester, and I'll go on to my second one. But I was told to do an experience that was more career-based, and so I've always had a love for music, like I mentioned earlier. And I wanted to implement the virtue of humility within that somehow. And so I thought of worship ministry, because that is a perfect example of that. And so I just wanted to pursue worship ministry because I knew that humility is required. I just said that. All right, but from my experience, I decided to dedicate 6 weeks to studying the topic of worship within the American church and what makes an effective worship leader. And I studied what the Bible says about worship and how God calls us to live with a heart of worship. He calls us to do that. And I studied the details of how humility correlates with worship. And lastly, I studied how worship ministry is a necessity within the church and the lives of Christians. So I wanted to read something from the Bible. So Jesus, when he was talking to the Samaritan woman at the well in Samaria, he talks about a time that is coming when the true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and truth. And that's John 4:21. I'm just going to read this. And it says, Jesus declared, "Believe me, woman, a time is coming when you will worship the Father, neither on this mountain nor in Jerusalem. You Samaritans worship what you do not know. We worship what we do know, for salvation is from the Jews. Yet a time is coming and has now come when the true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and truth, for they are the kind of worshipers that the Father seeks. God is spirit, and his worshipers must worship in spirit and in truth." So God doesn't tell us to worship with just spirit or just truth. He says to worship with spirit and truth. I think that they're dependent on each other, and they kind of thrive off of each other. You can't have one without the other. And many people, including myself, have found themselves guilty of attempting to worship without one of those. And what does it mean to worship with spirit and truth? Well, many philosophers have said that when Jesus came to this earth, worship became a matter of the heart instead of just external actions, and directed by truth rather than ceremony. Yes, external actions can still be acts of worship, but when the Holy Spirit came into play, worship became a matter of the heart. If you have no passion for God, you're not worshiping in spirit. It's that simple. To gain more of an understanding on worship ministry, I interviewed the worship pastor at my church, and he's a full-time worship pastor. And I just asked him questions about his job and how it has affected him and in his life. And he said, I'll just read it. He said in quotes that, "This job has made me more of a humble and authentic person. The truth is, God doesn't need me, nor does the church for that matter. I'm always surrounded by talented people who are better than me in many respects, but leading people in worship is something that is way bigger than me. Humility is a must. God can choose whoever he wants whenever he chooses." And these words from him have just really spoke to me and helped me understand what is needed to be a worship pastor. And I think authenticity is so important when you're leading worship, and because people aren't looking for a show or just cool lights or someone to give them something fake, but we get enough of that like in this world alone. But like I feel like people are actually coming desperate for like genuine answers and hope. But yeah, leading from an authentic place is just like the most important thing. And my worship pastor also said this, that he said that he's working through life just like everyone else, but he thinks that we can be so much more impactful as leaders if we just be real and don't put on a facade and just be fake. But yeah, as I was studying humility within worship, I found that they go hand in hand pretty well. And we're called to worship the God of the universe, and I don't think that there's anything more humbling than that by itself. But as a worship leader, as I was studying, I found that as a worship leader, you need to know that you're not, the stage isn't just for you. It isn't for you at all. Your job is to point everything towards God, and we should be about making him famous, not ourselves. And that's another thing that my worship pastor told me. And sometimes when I'm at church, I'll look around, and just for no reason, I just like to look around at the church sometimes, and I'll see people like with their hands raised and praising God and giving him everything they have, and then other weeks I'll look around and I'll see people just kind of have blank faces and just kind of look at the screens, hands in pockets, and I'm just like thinking to myself, I was thinking of that, and I feel like worshiping God should be so much more than that sometimes, and I am a judgmental person, and I know that, but I just really think that God deserves way more than we could ever offer him or have to offer him. But I just picture heaven with people it's crazy. I just picture people in heaven just with hands raised and dancing, singing songs, and I just feel like that's what the church should look like. Like, church is a place that should be safe and should be like a shield for people to feel free and worship God. And but yeah, just too often do I find myself like kind of withholding my praise from God just because of pride. And yeah, I just think, I'm going to say that again, that humility is something that ignites our intimacy with God, and pride is something that hinders it. And I think that that's one of my key points today that I want you guys to walk out with. And I'm going to skip some of this because I'm almost out of time, but yeah, let's see here. So, let's see. If people just see the importance of everything I've said today and the importance of humility and just having that and your confidence in God, I just think that we would worship and pursue God a lot different. And yeah, humility and worship are key aspects of being a Christian. And humility is placing your confidence in the Lord. I just wanted to nail that down too, because I want you guys to understand that. And lastly, worship is a position of the heart, and it says that in the Bible a bunch of times. And we are called to worship in spirit and in truth. So I hope that you didn't just hear me speak a speech today. I really hope that you guys heard me pleading with you to just live with true humility and find a purpose and relevance in worshiping God and how important that is. And just worshiping him with everything you have, because he is so deserving of it. And yeah, that's all I got. Thank you. That's all I got. Thank you. Yeah, ask away. That was really deep. I'm sorry. I'm really feeling it.
Scott, I have a question.
Yeah, what's up?
So I'm gathering from your speech that you're feeling like God is calling you into being a worship pastor.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Did you feel a lot of confirmation as you did this project?
Yeah, I would say, I thought I knew what humility was before I started this, and I just kind of truly found such a deeper meaning for it. When I found that, I was just like, all right, I should probably do this, pursue that. But I don't know. Yeah, it's something I'm interested in. I don't know if I'll end up doing it, but yeah.
What are you doing after high school?
I'm going to Bible school, I think, if I get accepted, and going from there. I don't know.
What school is it?
School in Germany. I applied to school in Germany.
Awesome.
Yeah, but I haven't got accepted yet, so I don't know.
What things at Front Range do you feel have helped you in that kind of going towards worship ministry, or has it helped?
Well, this project?
Obviously the project was specifically towards that, but just in everyday, kind of your last 2 years here at Front Range.
That's a deep question. would just say that like walking the halls here, and just like going to chapel and worshiping with all the students here, and all like just like being in a school where you can actually like go after God and with other people that are like-minded. It's kind of just like it's helped me not like hold back anything. So I would say, yeah, that's helped a lot. Being with people that kind of do the same. Yeah.
Scott Pride so often is the downfall of worship leaders. We watch them tragically fall because of the pride. If you enter into that, what do you do to maintain that humility? Did your worship leader talk about that? How do you hold on to that in the midst of that?
He didn't talk about that, but I would just say like just to, I don't know, I mean it's kind of in God's hands after that. Like he's gonna like test you, like you're in a position of leadership and you're gonna be tested by the devil a lot, but I feel like that you just gotta keep pursuing. Like that's like the typical answer, but I feel like if you stay strong in his word and just have that on your mind, and you're set. I feel like, but I don't know the answer to that. I tried.
All right, well, we are out of time, so if we could give one more round of applause for Scott.